Hey everybody, welcome to our Childless Chats. It is April and we are talking this month about men and childlessness. And I'm really excited to be back because I had a few months where I wasn't hosting these as I was getting ready for the Childless Collective Summit. And so it's nice to be back with you. And I am so excited about today's topic because it's one that I've been asked about a lot, although I have to say it's usually from wives wanting to know how they can better support their husbands. I don't get a lot of guys reaching out to me. So I was really actually excited when Andy and I connected through the Childless Collective Summit, and he said that he was interested in helping, elevate men's voices in this conversation, and that we were able to put this conversation together. So just to get us started, I would love to hear from those of you who are joining. So if you want to use the chat to tell us where you're joining from, I would love to hear from you. So please introduce yourself in the chat box. And all right, so let's go ahead and get started. I would love to just hear a little bit about you, Andy and Ken, to get us started. So Andy, I'll start with you. If you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe as much of your personal story about being childless as you're comfortable sharing with us.
Okay, thanks, Katie. And yeah, it's good to got in touch and to have this opportunity. So I'm 41, live in England with my wife and our two cats. I'm a therapist with sexual violence and sexual abuse, so quite heavy stuff. Alongside that, to lighten the load, I'm doing a PhD, which I really do question if it lightens the load. But the PhD, I suppose, is the thing most connected to childlessness, because it's like a plan B thing. So there's a bit of what can I do to find meaning and to do something that's for me if we can't have children, which we can't. So I'm a couple of years into that now. But my story regarding childlessness is it's quite long, really. But my wife and I mean, we met at university when we were 19. We quickly got engaged, and then spent 9 years engaged, most of our 20s. And through that, there was odd little conversations about having a family, mostly from Rach. I do remember one occasion from me, but on the whole, it felt like the 20s was about finding ourselves, our work, buying a house, doing things with friends, etc. And then we got married just before we turned 30. And that's when we started trying for a family. And it was just this assumption that it would happen. We're both talking about this the other day, that you go through secondary school in England and you're just told, do not have sex. You'll get someone pregnant, or you'll get pregnant if you're the girl. And it's like, so you just assume, well, it must be so super easy to happen. And yeah, the first year or two, we think there was probably early miscarriages, but not a lot happened for us, really. We did go to our doctors, we both had tests, and it just sort of started from there, in the sense of the explanation we were given was unexplained. There appeared to be no reason why we shouldn't have kids. And it was like the doctor said to me that, oh, it's just a numbers game, it will happen. And in my experience, that's what we've received back from the NHS and the medical side, is it will happen. It's almost like they can't deal with the emotional depth of how difficult this is. It's just giving us hope. And so that was also when I was training to be a counsellor. And so during those years, we were trying different vitamins, we didn't drink. We were part of a research project measuring temperature, etc. We were trying all sorts for what to happen, and all we still got left with was sort of very early miscarriages, and it was getting tougher and tougher. But we decided to try IVF once I'd qualified. And that is strange. That was the first time I felt some hope with it, some genuine hope that it was more than just us two battling this alone. There's some people helping us. And we conceived. We had a positive test, but sadly we lost our baby a few weeks later, and that both hit us hard. And then, yeah, a couple of years later, we did another round of IVF, and there's various reasons why there was a gap and why we did it again. But sadly, that one was unsuccessful, and that's when we thought, no, we've got to stop this for our own health. This is just, it's just too much, really. It's just not going to happen. So from that point onwards, it was a rocky road to gain an acceptance to grieve, and especially for me, I think Rach felt more supported through the Gateway Women organisation, but as a man, there wasn't a lot there, and I think I struggled to be ready enough to look for stuff as well. So I'll leave it there for now.
Yeah, well, thank you for telling us a little bit about your story. When you're talking about this idea that we're told our whole lives, like, don't have sex, you'll get pregnant, and it's just you go into it thinking it will be so easy, and I know for a lot of people it is, but I feel like that statistics piece, even going into IVF, I knew the statistics, but I always felt like I'd be on the right side of the statistics. Like, you never picture yourself as being the person who's going to be one of the people it doesn't work for.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you, Andy. Ken, I would love to hear from you as well. So welcome. If you want to do the same, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and as much as you're comfortable sharing about your path to childlessness.
Okay. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. Well, I met my wife. I was in my late 20s. I think I was 27 when I met her. And she had been married before and had 2 children from that. She had been divorced. And we tried for, well, quite a few years. We never got into the IVF stuff because that was a little out of our finance range at the time. And it was just more of just natural ways. We went to her gynecologist to get some insight, and similar to like what Andy was saying. It was saying, well, give it a chance, it'll happen, kind of thing. And as the years passed, of course it didn't. And my thoughts of it ever coming to be were getting less and less. There were 2 miscarriages that they were early stage also, and that was kind of heartbreaking when you think it. Wow, it almost could have been, but and we at that time I would go in and out of it, of how it bothered me. It would affect me, but it wouldn't grab hold of me, like it wouldn't like rip me apart and take hold of my mind and all. I would be able to let it go after a short time and get back in my normal routines, and it would come back and go. It wasn't like it is now. We, from that point when we realized, probably, I guess she was around 45 or 6, that wasn't going to happen, just kind of tried to move on, do our lives, or the hard part at times were her having the children, which were grown. They weren't living with us. And over those years after when we stopped, her daughter got married and had 2. And that's how this this thing of being the step parent thing, this is all going on in our little, or my little world there. Seeing, it's times you hear about people getting pregnant and stuff, but this was going on like in my my new life with my wife, and you know, it would bother me, but I was able to move on from it. I loved their kids when they were born. I had a lot of fun with them, and when it really started affecting me was when I got older. When a co-worker's wife got pregnant, and he told me about it and said that the doctors were concerned because of her age. I said, "Oh, you know, she'll be all right. Don't worry." But the next day, all of a sudden, it hit me like someone hit me over the head with a bat or something, because that was like the same age we pretty much stopped and gave up, and his wife was pregnant, and it went through fine. She had no complications or anything, but for 3 years after that, I was in an up and down roller coaster. I went it. I lost it. I guess I yelled, I screamed, I yelled out loud with myself. I yelled at my wife. You know, I was having a real hard time with that, and even up till today, it's been hard.
Well, Ken, thank you so much. You know, your vulnerability is really coming through, and I know that there are people who are watching who are hearing your words and can you know, empathize with what you're going through. Many, you know, I'm sure we have many that are here who have experienced it as well, and that your words are touching them. So thank you for being here and for being willing to, you know, talk about your experience, because I do think that in sharing our stories and talking about it, it can help create healing. And I know that you being here will be helpful to others who are watching. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to talking with you more throughout the hour, but yeah, thank you. All right, Andy, I'm going to step back to you for a minute to talk about the Clan of Brothers. So I hadn't actually heard about this until, you know, you mentioned it during the summit, and I was really excited to find out that there was this great resource that exists for men who are childless, because I do get asked sometimes, and I haven't really had anywhere to lead people to, because there are very few resources that are specifically geared toward men. So will you tell us a little bit about the Clan of Brothers and what you do with Invisible Childlessness, and how both of those projects kind of started?
Yeah, sure. So the Clan of Brothers was started by Michael Hughes. So based on a conversation Ken and I was having through Messenger. So I can't remember why Michael put the three of us together on Messenger as a group, but Ken and I were chatting about something, and Michael was like, And a few days later, the clan appeared on Facebook, and he added a couple of other people as founding members. And early on, he made me an admin as well. I think we shared a load, really. And Jody Day talked to us both separately to nudge each other to try and work together on doing something like that to support men. And in our own way, I guess Michael and I made that happen. And so the clan, it's a closed group on Facebook. It's for men only. And it's a slow burn. I think we're all at different stages of our acceptance, but also I think it's a bit like a roller coaster. Sometimes you feel like you've worked through something, and then on the sort of downhill or plateau, and then something will come along and bump you back up and throw you around a bit. So I think in some ways people come and post something when they need something, but they might be in the background just seeing what's going on, or just knowing there's somewhere they belong, and that's enough. So one of the things I'm doing at the moment in the clan is we're having a weekly sort of task where people are sharing photos, and other clan members put it all into a video. And the idea is to sort of just to get to know ourselves simply in a friendly way. So then when those bumps come, when it's more, I've got something on my mind, it feels like you've got a bit more of a connection to ask those questions, because we're well aware that people have shared their stories, it's often the main post people do is how they've got to this point. But I think one thing that would be nice is maybe us to grow into a more of a support group, so people can feel like they can ask questions or just say, today's a bad day. And we can just like it, we can just go, got you. So you're not alone. And I think perhaps part of me thinks, yeah, perhaps for that we just need to know that we all exist. So the photo exercise is one way around that. But yeah, it's been a year, the clan. We've got 60 odd members. So it's doing well considering it felt like the other support groups I'm part of on Facebook. I've seen Ken there, I've seen the odd other guy. But yeah, we do seem very in the minority, I suppose. So it's nice that we're starting to have a group where we're coming together. And for me, the clan it helps me grow. It certainly helped push me to then do other chats like this on different formats. And it's also about giving something that I wish was there in my 30s when I was really struggling. I remember Rach passing me Robin Hadley's details. So Rob is an academic, he looks at childlessness. And remember looking at his website, I wanted to be a dad or something like that. And that's about as far as I got. I just couldn't get there. But I do wonder if a little group in the background might have helped. So that's my reason behind it. And then Invisible Childlessness, it's a bit more of a solo project, but I'd like it to expand across the community. So it's somewhere where I've been sharing my expressions of what childlessness means to me, sort of creatively, so photos, art, poetry, writing. I'm not as active there outside of Instagram as I'd like. I think mainly time at the moment, doing my research. But again, it's about trying to add something to our community, because obviously there's loads of little places where this community is growing. And I just thought it'd be nice to have somewhere where we shared our creative expressions, like a online gallery. And so at some point, I'd like to really push that and encourage people to submit their work. It can be named, can be anonymous, and we can just have this place where we've got all these stories going on. And again, it could be like a resource to sort of not feel on your own. So I guess for both, it's about creating belonging, creating a sense of there's people out there who get you, which seems to me is really important.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I would say it's the number one thing that has helped me heal and kind of move forward and figure out, what am I doing? Because it is hard. And I think, both of you touched on this idea that it's not like you heal, you're done, you just move on. I think this grief stays with us throughout our lives, and at different times it's more prominent and maybe sometimes it's more in the background, but it is really nice to have those people that you can go to that just get it, and that you can, like you said, Andy, if you're having a bad day, you've got a forum or somewhere where you can go and express that and have people who will understand. So I think it's great that you're doing that. And for the Invisible Childlessness one, I know you said you'd like to see, share more people's work. Is that something that is specifically for men, or is that for anyone who's childless?
It's for anyone who's childless. So yeah, the Invisible Childless one wasn't set up specifically for men. It was just set up as for anyone who identifies as childless.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess, my posts are written obviously from the point of view of a man. It'd be great to have more men on there, as well as women. So, but yeah, I think, part of me finds it hard that we separate so much, the men and the women's side, but I get the need also for separate groups. I do really understand that, but I think for me, the invisible one is about, let's just bring us all together. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Well, I like the idea of what you said, that it's kind of like an online gallery, on Instagram, because I know there are a lot of people who, some form of art or like visual expression is really their way of how they like to express their feelings or what they're going through. So I think that's a really cool idea. And yeah, I mean, I think about this a lot because I do get asked about, why aren't there more resources for men? And I think my first reaction is for me, I always think, well, I don't necessarily feel like I'm gendering the stuff that I'm putting out. Like I would love for more men to come and see what I'm creating and be a part of whatever information I'm putting out there. And then the second reaction I always have is like, I think that if men are feeling like they need something specific that they're not getting from different women that are out there creating communities and resources, then it does kind of feel like there needs to be men who are starting that and being more vocal and creating outlets. So I think it's really great that you're doing that, because that does feel like what's missing. Like I've thought about creating specific resources for men, but I don't know, like they're not coming to me. So I don't know if they would actually participate. So yeah, it's a really interesting question, because like I said, most of outside of you, the only time I've ever been contacted about resources for men has been from women who are wanting to figure out how to reach their husbands better. So it's something I've thought about a lot, but I don't know if I'm the right avenue to try to be the one who's creating this. I think it's really cool that you are doing that. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, because it's something I think about a lot, and I don't know what the solution is, but.
No, it's I think when a few of us from the clan of brothers have got together chatting about this, we've thought the same, that perhaps for men it's about doing something alongside. So we often sort of, we all lived in the same country, let alone town, so spread through the world, and we can meet up, go around someone's garden, help on a project, have a barbecue, a few beers. We're probably more likely to then start talking than just straight away onto like an online forum. So yeah, I think it's partly creating a space, and I think having a men-only group is part of that, creating a space. But then I think it's about, well, what do we do in that space to encourage men who, I think, we're not brought up, we're not socialized to really share our emotions. Like Ken talked about anger, and I know at times I showed anger over sadness, that my sadness would come out as anger, and then that emotion, because it's viewed negatively, it's often squashed. I didn't like doing it, wife didn't like it, and so then you got no outlet for emotion. And so I think it's about, well, first of all, we create that space, perhaps some activities in that space, but then how do we also make it safe to share the emotions and the rawness of them? So yeah, I think it is. I think perhaps it just needs people like Ken and I, Michael, Rob, to share our stories, to keep chipping away, and then maybe other people will follow. Yeah, it's a tricky one. Sort of, but I feel like perhaps the ones of us who are speaking, we're perhaps more on the side who will speak about it, and it's about maybe encourage men who are perhaps even more socialized, I suppose, to avoid it. Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard to get a man to open up about his feelings. Oh yeah, absolutely. And even a few months back, I had felt maybe I wanted to speak to someone. Like I've always said, I love these when we get together and chat, with the clan and all, because when I like to be looking at someone when I talk to them. Posting on a group is great, and I love it. But I always like and enjoy having someone to look at, and they can see me. And so along with that, I called one of my brothers about 6 months or so ago, who he doesn't have children, but he was by choice. Him and his wife had some from a previous marriage, and they decided that they weren't going to have any. But I opened up to him about my feelings about it, and how I felt, and how it's at times really bothered me and hard to deal with and all. And I felt like I was talking to a wall. As I'm talking to him, he starts telling me about one of his hobbies that he's working on, and then I'd have to get him back on the subject of what I'm trying to tell him. And then he'd go off again on something else. When I got off the phone, I told my wife, I said, that was a waste of time.
That's tough. That's a hard feeling. And I think that yeah, I've had moments like that too, where it's hard to bring this up to someone and express how you're feeling, and then you don't feel heard, you feel dismissed, and then that definitely leaves you feeling like, well, I don't want to do that again. That was not fun.
Yeah, right, exactly. And because over the years, I never spoke to anybody. And how it all started with me, I was doing a search on the internet for something I don't remember, but totally by accident, I came across the blog that Michael and Vicky Hughes have about their childless stories. And I emailed him. He emailed me. We emailed back and forth a couple of times. And then he told me about a Facebook group and a men and women's group, and said I should think about joining it. I didn't even belong to Facebook at the time.
Mhm.
And I did. I joined that, and that was a men and women's group, and that was the first time I really started to talk to people about it, and it is a big help. I still post on the clan. I post on this other group, because sometimes I actually like a woman's input on how I might be feeling or thinking about something. So I'll post something on that site. And there's other times where you want to hear what a guy his opinion is, so I'll post on the clan. But both sites, actually I belong to 3 now, have all 3 have definitely been a help.
Yeah. I mean, I think that these opportunities to gather in any form, whether it's on like a forum or a group, or opportunities like this, because I'm just looking at the chat where people said where they're joining from. We have people from Canada, Switzerland, Maryland, a second Switzerland, France, Southern California, England, another Switzerland, another California. So we've got a lot of people from all over, which just shows kind of the power and how many people are looking for this. It's pretty amazing that we have the technology that can allow us to have these conversations with people from around the world, where, before, 5-10 years ago, it would be much harder to put something like this together. So I think that the tools we have now also make it easier to kind of come together. I also just want to give a quick shout out to Eric, who is from the Live Child Free podcast. He's joining. So hi, Eric. If you guys haven't checked out the Live Child Free podcast, it's fantastic. It's Eric and Melissa are a married couple who talk about their experience with childlessness. And it's one of the resources that got me through my transition when I realized that I was going to be permanently childless. And there's just a lot of power in that podcast. So if you have not checked it out, I highly recommend it. So, hey, Eric. Let's see. I'm just looking at our other comments. Someone said, yes, this is how it is with people who cannot relate. Oftentimes they're uncomfortable with our grief and they don't know what to say. And yeah, spot on. I mean, I think part of it is that we are a very grief illiterate culture. So it's very, people don't always know how to respond. So
I know my wife too, she sometimes doesn't know what to say to me.
Yeah.
And at times she's been an amazing help that I really needed at the time,
Yeah. Well, and Ken, that actually kind of leads to the next question that I have for you, because, you're in a unique situation of being a childless stepdad. And this was a perspective that I, to be honest, just hadn't really thought that much about until I started hearing from childless stepmoms a lot, that they were, sharing some of the things they were struggling with and how unique that situation is. And I think I had thought about it in terms of, it's a struggle because you have kids in your life, but they're not your biological kids. You don't always get that same status as a parent. But then also, the thing that just occurred to me as I was preparing for this conversation is that you don't have a partner who's also experiencing childlessness. So you're not able to share that. And you kind of touched on that. So I would just love to hear a little bit more from you about, what that's been like for you.
Yeah, like you said, my partner isn't childless. So, it's hard for me to go to her like Like if I had a bad day at work, I mean, oh God, I've had it happen where I'm talking to a couple of coworkers, and then it seems like almost every time the conversation goes to their kids, and I'm just standing there like a moron listening. And I can't go home and tell my wife about that, because I had said to her many years ago, I had said to her, I said, not you, not your son, not your daughter, not anybody that has children will understand how I feel. And she admitted, she agreed, she said, no, I really couldn't. And it is hard because there's this whole family thing growing around me with her family, the grandkids' wife is expecting next month. So, it's just constantly, I don't even have to walk outside the door to have all this thing or turn on the TV to experience these things that it's pretty upsetting on a daily basis at times,
I know a lot of us can relate to that. They're like just out in the world, you're going to get hit every day with things that are reminders.
Yeah.
Well, let's see, Andy, I'm going to come back to you, and I would love to hear from you, because we've kind of touched on this idea of social support, and how Ken mentioned expressing his feelings to people and feeling like they didn't really get it, and leaving that conversation feeling worse than he had started with. And I think it can be hard for all of us to figure out, like, where can we go for that support. So I just love to hear, what was your experience with social support like when you're going through infertility treatments, and I guess after too. Did you talk to many people about what you're experiencing?
Yeah, we did. So we did as a couple. We'd often meet our friends as a group, as well as I did on my own. And yeah, it was like Ken, that you'd share something, and it'd be really often difficult to get much back. But there has, that was some of the occasions. Other occasions, friends did hear me, but it would be at the time, so it'd be quite a sort of isolated conversation. So we'd see some friends. At some point, I'd bring this up. They'd listen. They might say some things back with good intentions, but I think as all childless people who are in couples or have tried for child, so it's sort of through infertility rather than circumstance, maybe, that you get offered that advice of, oh, have you tried this? Or if you do this, or well, we experienced that and then it's happened for us, it'll keep happening. So they want to, because they're our friends, they want to be hopeful for us. They want to say it'll be okay. And that was the general message I got really from friends and from family, was that, oh, that's rubbish, but it will happen. There was this sense that it couldn't not happen. That it's very hard for anyone to say, yeah, that might not happen for you. That could be really awful. And I suppose that was a thing where they just didn't get the depth of the sadness, of the struggle, of the losses. So through the first IVF, because we had a miscarriage, families and friends got it more, that there was a loss. And we'd meet up with some of them. I think my mum sent us some wildflower seeds and that. It was, sometimes they didn't know what to say, but some people sort of did some practical. They'd arrange to get us out of the house and we'd go for a walk or something. But after the second IVF, because it was unsuccessful, and there was no sort of physical loss, it was a bit more tumbleweed. Like, people just didn't get, actually, this is a bigger loss, because it feels like the end of our road. Because in England, it was we get two treatments funded through the NHS, so we had no money to do it privately, and so yeah, that was tricky. That when there's a miscarriage, they sort of, oh yeah, there, that's rubbish. But when it was talking about the hopes and dreams, about what does our life look like, about the children, the room that was always going to be a nursery, that just sort of was empty for a long time. They didn't get that sort of emotional loss as much.
Yeah.
And I think like Ken, because when you do talk and you get little back of it at an emotional level, we got more back at practical advice level. It then makes it harder to go back and talk again. And often some friends, being men, it could have been that we've gone to the pub, we've watched a football game, had a few drinks, and then I might say something. And then when you're next to each other sober and you're doing something, it doesn't come up, it doesn't continue. And perhaps that's because as a society, we don't have a narrative around childlessness. So as well as us who are childless, we can find it really difficult to talk about people who have got kids or perhaps who have chosen not to have kids or not at that stage. It's like they just don't know how to connect. And so I sort of get their struggles, but it does make it hard, definitely, because it's very hard to have continuous conversations, not just have snippets.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like with me, people were a lot more engaged with me while I was, I tried for 4 years. So during that 4 years, I feel like I had people close to me that would be sending texts and checking in on me and seeing how I was doing and giving me phone calls. And a lot of times it was more the practical, like you said, like kind of like, so what's next? What'd the doctor say? What's happening, And I found that once I was no longer trying, that's probably when I needed the support the most, but that's when it dropped off, because I think that's when people just had no idea what to say to me, because when there's still hope for a child, they can kind of give those platitudes or, be your cheerleader, or, they feel like they have a way to connect with you. And I think it is harder once you get to that stage of, we're not trying anymore, this is just it. Like for me, it's like that, a lot of that just dropped off. Like I just stopped hearing from people. And I think part of it was just because it was so awkward. They just didn't know what to say.
Yeah, right.
So we've got some more comments here in the chat box. Let me pull these up so I can see what people are saying here. So it looks like we've got so the guys in Switzerland are wanting to connect. So yeah, it sounds like Clan of Brothers is a good place to do that. So I'll pull up the Facebook, address for that and add it in the chat so that you guys can hop in there and hopefully, make some connections happen there. Let's see. So someone else said, Ken, you're so right. I can relate. And someone else, this was back when you were talking, Ken. Someone else said, me too, Ken. My partner is a father and just does not understand, but really, how can they?
Right.
Yeah, someone else said, it reminds me of what Jody says. So Jody Day, we cannot go to the hardware store to buy milk. Bottom line is that people cannot give what they do not have. Someone else said, yes, if you tell people, they shut down the conversation quickly. Someone said that they're not on Facebook. Is there another way to get in touch with you and the clan? Someone who's also in the UK.
I suppose at the moment we're only on Facebook. And we've had this asked before, so it's perhaps something we need to think about. So I'm on Twitter and Instagram, both as Invisible Childlessness and as myself, Andy Harrod 79. So we could, Matthew, if you use social media that way, we can connect, or perhaps through Katie, we can swap emails and at least have a chat and maybe think of an extension to the clan. But I suppose the reason we use Facebook as much as all social media's got its pros and cons, is it's free. It's a free platform. I think we haven't ventured into somewhere where we might have to ask people to pay. I think that's something we'd want to try and avoid.
Yeah.
Facebook just allows those conversations.
Yeah, and I know I don't know what if I know some people really don't want to be on Facebook, but I have a Facebook account that I only am part of a couple groups on, and that's it. So I don't have any friends on there. I don't use it for anything else. It's just a way for me to be in a few groups. So that might be, you know, an option too, if that's something you'd be interested in, is just creating like just an account specifically for this.
That's all I use it for.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. So they said he'll try to get on Twitter and connect. So
okay, that sounds good.
I mean, one thing that it just seems like keeps coming up as a theme is, and that I found as well, is that this is why these conversations and having a place like the Clan of Brothers and having these different places to connect are so powerful, is that we really do need each other in the healing process here, and to really be understood, because, you know, I think we've all expressed that we've had a difficult time trying to express what we're going through, how we're feeling to other people in our life, and not getting the response that we're needing. And I don't know if there's like a good fix for that, if they'll ever really get it, but it is so nice to have you guys and other people within our community that we could come together and commiserate, I guess, and feel understood and seen.
It was only a couple of years ago, only like 3 years ago, that I found out about this whole thing. Before that, I just had that feeling I got to be the only one going through this, because I don't know of anybody that is like, and yeah, it's only been 3 years now that I've been on the Facebook with these groups, and it has been a big help. It really has.
Yeah. All right. So I am going to ask a question. This is going to be for both of you. I would love to hear both of your, thoughts on this. So I know something that comes up a lot is the theme of legacy, and it's something that those of us in the childless community think a lot about. And so I want to hear from you, Ken. Maybe let's start with you, just about, is this something that you think about often? And I just kind of love to hear your perspective on this idea of legacy.
Yeah, I do think about it a lot, and it is because of being a step-parent. Like I said, seeing these with my wife, I see a legacy growing. I mean, she has 2 kids, 4 grandkids, and is going to be a great grandmother next month. And it's nothing I'll ever have, nothing I'll ever see, and I see a legacy growing right next to me with my wife. Who knows, how far it'll go. They'll never be a Ken Fenton Jr. They'll never be anyone that says, well, with the holiday coming up, Happy Father's Day, Dad. It's a lonely feeling. It gives me like, I have my wife, her kids, they are good kids. They're great. But no, they're not mine. And they won't, I won't ever have anything like that. And I know that. And I try not to focus too much on it. I try to enjoy her family as much as I can, not being my own. In fact, I'll come up with an idea. Do you want we have a barbecue next month? Get everybody together, because I do like that family feeling, even though it's not mine. I guess I don't know. It's just maybe it helps me feel a little bit better. I'm not sure.
No, that makes sense, Ken. That sense of being alone because we don't have our own biological kids, I think. And it's been something I've been thinking about with our nieces, because pandemic and pre-pandemic's a distance. Just haven't been that and the grief, of course, haven't been that in touch with them, in the sense of now there's more of a desire to sort of just spend time with them, to sort of connect, and perhaps to leave a bit of a legacy as an imprint, as an uncle. Maybe it's through a book, through some music. Like, I remember, because legacy is not something I've ever really thought of, and I think if we had kids, I wouldn't even be using that word. It's only something that's come up for me being childless. And I remember, like, I buy vinyl and I'm thinking, this isn't the cheapest stuff in the world. I can just listen to it digitally. Why am I doing it? And it's like, because I love it. That's why I'm doing it. It's one thing for me. And then I was like, well, who's going to get it? Again, is it worth it if it's just for me? And really, it is, because I matter as much as if I, with or without kids. And then it's like, it doesn't matter if at the end the records get thrown away. If I've enjoyed it, then that's good enough. And I think that's one of the things with legacy. It feels like we must pass on something, or we must be remembered by people for our life to have meaning and value. And I think it'd be ridiculously rare, but I think it probably is possible to live a life and not be remembered, and that life to be really worthwhile and full of life. But I think if your life's worthwhile and full, the likelihood is you're going to be remembered, at least by people around you. But I think I'm probably losing my thread a bit, but yeah, I think it is something about just having that continuous connection, and perhaps more around legacy is actually growing older, and who's going to be the community we're going to be part of, who's going to be our support. And it's quite dark, but one of my thoughts was like, what about our final wishes? Who's going to help do the funeral, in a sense? Is it going to be what either of us would want? Obviously, one of us might be looked after by the other, but there is that sense of, at some point, one of us is going to be on their own. And that feels quite, that just feels really sad. I think that's the thing. And that's still clearly being processed. It's a new thought. Yeah, I think we get asked ourselves lots of questions. I think we wouldn't if we had kids. I think as a community.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think Andy, my thoughts around legacy, I think, are probably a bit, when you're talking, it resonated with me, because I think I don't know, my family, I have people in my family who are really big on doing genealogy. So I can actually go on both lines of my family and trace my genealogy back like hundreds of years, because someone's gone in and done all the research work that it takes to fill in those gaps and build out that tree. And when I look at that, I think about, this is going to sound really rude, but like how little I know or necessarily care about the people who went before me in my lineage. Like, I mean, it's kind of like interesting stories or whatever, but the people that I care about and think about and that have left a legacy on me are the people who touched my life in some way, and that I had a relationship with, and that I remember them. And I think when I think about my personal legacy, or what I would hope, is just that I want the people whose lives I actually touched and who I was involved with and who know me personally to miss me a bit, that it left a little bit of a space that I'm gone. And I feel like after that, like if you think about generational legacy, I honestly just don't care, because I feel like most people aren't remembered after those who love them are gone. Like unless you're like famous or have done something really, just exceptionally extraordinary where it's going to be written in a history book or something. I mean, how many of us talk about or think about our great grandparents who we never met, or our great 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 grandparents? Like most people's legacies only last through the people that they know and loved, and that they had an impact. And so I just focus on that. Like, how can I be good to the people around me? And then also, like you said, doing things just for the enjoyment of doing them. Like your record collection, if it gets thrown out, fine. If you meet someone else in the music community that loves music, put it in your will to give it to them, or like donate it to a charity. Like there are other people who can benefit from the things that we create or collect, or I don't know. But all right, well, I'm looking at the chat here, and someone asked a question. Can you ask them what they wish society understood about male infertility? So I don't know what G wants to take that first, but.
Yeah, I don't know. All I see with society is that it seems like to be an expected thing for you to get married and you have children, and the whole world is geared around that. Even advertising, oh God, the advertising is really taking it to an extreme. You get that feeling like if you don't have them, you're not part of the norm of the world. I don't know if there'll ever be. All this going on now is an amazing thing, and I think it's helping bring a great awareness that never was. But I don't know if it would ever be to the point that would, make all of us feel more comfortable dealing with society on a daily basis. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe.
I know. Sorry, you could finish, Ken.
No, I'm done.
Okay. I think for me, there's something about society, but also the male point of view. I'm interested to know what the women think of this, that actually not being able to have kids makes you less than a man, doesn't make you feel a failure. I think, society is so pronatal and family centric. It is just geared up to have kids. And so if you don't, I feel like you do come invisible. Like we're on the outside. Yes. And like Katie said earlier, you can drift from friends. You don't have those new opportunities to meet friends, like the football pitches, the school gates, etc. And so I suppose it'd just be to sort of be kinder. So yeah, I'm a white male. I'm clearly in a majority. This is a minority of it I'm experiencing, and I think it's like all minorities that we just need to be kinder to all of us and to be more accepting of all of us, regardless of what's going on for us. In a sense, it's that we're all the same.
True,
we're all humans, and it's like it just feels odd that if you don't have something, or if you're a different color, if you live here instead of there, you're seen differently. And I suppose that's a bigger answer to it, but I suppose really it's just you understood it didn't make us less than, and that we're still just human.
More acceptable, like you said.
Yeah.
All right, I want to catch up with some of the comments. I know we just have a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to catch up on some comments, and then we have a couple of questions as well. So someone said, yes, Katie, we need each other. Grief is so unpredictable and can hit at any time, so it's good to have regular meetups where we can connect and share. Definitely. Let's see. I'm going to skip some of the questions because I don't think we're going to have time to get to all of them. So someone else said, I worry about this idea of legacy coming up for my husband as he watches his brother's family and my sister's family grow. We are in our 40s and he has so far not struggled with their childlessness and is happy as a family of 2 with a dog. Someone else said, I'd like to bust the myth that children equals legacy. Yes, this definitely, I think there's, other ways that people could create legacy. Let's see. So someone said, I wish society didn't assume that women were the only people affected by infertility. So many resources and articles seem to leave men out of the conversation entirely. So, I mean, this comes up a lot, and I am wondering if that is because women are more likely to be vocal, right? And so we're writing from our perspectives, like we're taking, I mean, most of us who are doing this are not getting paid or doing this, to make a living. So we are also doing it in our free time. And so I honestly, I think that part of the answer to this seems to be that we just need more men's voices in the conversation. So, writing articles, building community, building places to connect, and just like raising those voices. But yeah, that is a tough one.
Just, I suppose I forgot a minute just to say on that.
Yeah.
I think also men get left out of the journey of trying for kids. Like when we went for IVF, it was just addressed to Rach, to my wife. And I asked them, could you address it to both of us? This is about us both. And they did. That was nice. But they had to handwrite it. So the automated system was set up just to mail it to her, not to count us as a couple. It was like she was the patient and I was just the guy who had to go to a room with a plastic box. And that was my bit of it.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if the doctors, I think they looked at Rach more than me, if you like. And it's that thing, so we get left out of the journey. So I wonder if also that makes it harder for us to join in the conversation. But again, you look at once you have kids, it seems the woman's work, isn't it? I think that's quite an old term, but it does still seem to rest on the mother rather than the father more. So I think it's society in general needing to, be less gendered roles, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you there for sure. So I know we are like 1 minute to the hour, but we have a couple of questions that have come in that it would be nice to get to. And I want to know, like, Andy and Ken, if we went over by like 5 or 10 minutes, would you guys be okay with that? Or do you have a hard stop?
I'm good.
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, well, let's go for a few more minutes so we can answer, some of these questions that came in. So somebody asked about this idea of like in thinking about where the medical issue lies, with one partner or the other. How do you deal with the guilt if you're the one that had the biological issue that was keeping you from getting pregnant?
I think. Go ahead, Ken.
No, go, Ken.
With me or us, it was never really said. Well, it was my because of me or because of her. It was never pinpointed to being a specific problem or issue. What was causing it? So no, yeah. We never knew who whether it was me or what.
And because ours, we were just told it's unexplained. We both ended up blaming ourselves. We never blamed the other person. We never said it was them. It was always, no, it's not you, it's not you, it's me. And I think the unexplained it feels more difficult, because I think for a long time that I've started using this phrase toxic hope, and at some point I'll write about it because there's loads of threads to it. But I think somewhere in there was, because it's unexplained and it could happen. There's a sense it wasn't going to not happen then. But the guilt for me wasn't around fertility treatments. It's more about, why didn't we just start sooner? We've been together. I've been with Rach more than I haven't been now. And it's like, we lived together in our 20s. And it's just, but I think it's society and this assumption it would happen. We don't have to worry about this. But the guilt's more on decisions about when we started, and rather than what happened during it, because that's just unknown. That thing.
Yeah. Well, Andy, in response to what you're saying, I'll give you something that is one of my favorite things that my therapist told me that I think about all the time, which is he has told me in so many different situations, you made the best decision that you could with the information that you had at the time. And I mean, that's the thing, right? You can look back and say, why didn't we start earlier? Why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? But you were doing the best you could, right? I mean, my husband and I weren't ready to start trying earlier, and we had no reason to think that we weren't going to get pregnant, because the truth is that most people do get pregnant just from having sex within a year. Most hetero couples, that's all they do to get pregnant. And so there was no reason that you would have assumed that you would have had trouble, So I think the guilt part's hard. I don't know if we answered your question about the blame piece exactly, but I know that's a tough one. It's something I think about a lot, because the medical issues were on my side very clearly in our situation. And I do think about that, not even just with my husband, but, thinking about, I wasn't able to make my husband a father. I wasn't able to make my parents, grandparents. I mean, they already are, but with my children, and I wish I could have had cousins. So, I mean, this blame thing can go pretty far. And I think we do a lot of self-blame too, but at the end of the day, these are circumstances that are outside of our control.
Yes.
Okay, so somebody said, this is an interesting question. Someone said, how do we avoid feeling selfish in childlessness? We might have more time, more money, more flexibility than our peers who have kids, yet we have endured great sadness and loss along the way. I don't want to beat myself up for seeming to have luxuries that people with kids don't have.
Let's see, Andy?
I'm not sure. Personally, I felt selfish yet, because I'm not sure we've got luxuries, because my wife and I seem to have this habit of, once we seem to have a little bit of money, one of us will change jobs and start again. And the PhD in that was a way to go. And then my wife's done something similar during the pandemic to not work. She was in schools, so to keep herself safe. So yeah, we don't necessarily have that luxury, but it is an interesting one that if you got more time for yourself, that could be viewed as selfish, and that's a real shame, really, because it sort of feels like it's demeaning ourselves that we're not allowed this, that we're not allowed just to spend time, money on ourselves, on who we wish to, how we wish to. Yeah, I sort of feel like it's been the opposite, really, with the pandemic. There's been lots of those sort of memes where people with kids are looking on the childless or child-free, or I wish I had your existence. And then, yeah, there's certainly been a lot of resonance through the real tough grief with lockdowns in the UK of suddenly you're disconnected again. You're not with people, you're on your own. And Rach and I were our main support, really, during that time and in the lockdowns. But I've not got to the luxury stage yet. Maybe I'll experience some selfish feelings then, but it's more a resonance of this is just really, it's lonely, I suppose.
Yeah, we were never in luxuries, no. And neither one of us were travelers where we like to travel, and things like that, spend money on traveling. And the luxuries, no, we're happy with the modest house and the modest car, and as far as those type of things, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I always get a bit confused about the tying of not having kids to the term selfishness, because in my mind, like, it's only selfish if you're hurting someone as a result. And so who are you hurting if you're just enjoying your life? Like, it's to me, that's not selfish. If you had a child and then decided to ignore that child, that to me seems selfish. But I don't know. I think this tying the word selfish to people who don't have kids just always seems really strange to me, because I think if we're living our lives in the way that we choose to, if you're not hurting someone else, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't see where the selfishness comes in. And I think a lot of us do contribute to our communities and in different ways and the causes that we care about. So,
Right.
all right, so we just have one more question, and that is, how do we educate friends to be socially sensitive around people without children? Haven't we all been asked whether we have children, and it's either we curl up inside or left the questioner at a complete loss about how to converse with us? Ultimately, it's bad manners on the part of others if they can't find something worthwhile to talk about other than children. The lack of curiosity about other people in social arenas is thoughtless, unkind, lazy, and rude, isn't it? So I guess it's just the idea of, like, how do we get people to stop asking us if we have kids, and get people to be more socially sensitive?
Oh yeah, I want to find out how. Yeah, it's, oh God. I actually I exploded with it on a coworker about 2 years ago. Similar kind of thing. We were working in the same area, and he said to me, I think I mentioned this on the clan, but he said to me, "So Ken, how many children do you have?" And so first of all, he didn't ask me if I had children. He just asked me how many I had. And well, I told him no, I didn't have any. And he said, "Oh, well, some people weren't meant to have kids." And that's where I could feel my blood pressure rising, and I exploded. I was screaming at him. I told him, "You're going to tell me?" I use curse words I wouldn't say, but that you and other people can have children, and God wouldn't allow me to have children, and there were a lot of curse words in there. And my face was right up to his yelling, and that was a serious. Well, what I did wasn't right, but his assuming and you know that like he was pretty assuming. Yeah, I'm married. I must have kids, I guess. You know.
Mm. Yeah, and that's really tough. And there's part of me, it's probably the therapist part, thinking of all the people I've seen because of relational trauma from bad parenting. And I just feel like a comment like that, you just think, should you be a parent? And that's just as equally as insensitive, as equally as provoking in terms of a response. But it's, for me, I think it's just a wish, yeah, we as all people, because we all do this, we're all human, but just think through what we're saying to people and just think, why don't I get to know the person rather than get to know them through something they do? And it feels like children's the easy conversation. If you're at a certain age and you're married, it's like, I'll ask about your kids because that could be an easy topic. So then I have to talk about myself. And I wonder if a lot of us have trouble talking about ourselves, having the self-worth to talk about ourselves, having the confidence to talk about ourselves. And so it's easier to talk about something else. And it could be, yeah, your kids, but before that, it could be your football team or your favorite band, etc. And so I suppose, it's perhaps it goes beyond education. Perhaps it goes to like how our emotional intelligence and how we treat each other, so we don't grow up feeling shame, feeling rubbish for who we are. And I do wonder then if people talk through kids less. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one I know comes up a lot because it's one of the first questions a lot of us get asked when we meet someone new. And Ken, like you said, sometimes it's not even a question; it's just the assumption of, well, you obviously have kids. How many do you have?
Yeah,
You
right.
know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I think about this a lot because I'll post about this, write about it, try to raise awareness about it. But I know that the people who are listening to me are also childless. So it is hard to know, like, how do you reach just kind of general society to get this message out of like, here's why we shouldn't be asking people this question. But also I think one of the things that helped me a lot in knowing that to a large extent, I wasn't going to be able to change the behavior of other people, but I could try to minimize the impact that it had on me when I was getting asked. And so my therapist helped me work out a couple of responses in advance that I like crafted, and depending on the situation, like how I wanted to handle it at the time, and having already come up with those answers in advance so that when I did get asked, I could shuffle through those couple that I had and decide, which one felt right for me in the moment. That really helped a lot, and helped me feel more confident in just engaging with people and not being as scared of the question because I had kind of a plan for it. So I don't know. I think, I wish there was a way we could educate everybody so that we didn't get asked anymore, but I think it's more likely to probably start where you're at. And sometimes I think if you're in the right mood for it, you can use it as a way to educate people on why that might be an insensitive question to ask, and do it in a way that, feels good to you if you thought about it in advance. So yeah, that's a tough one though. I know that's one that comes up a lot. Yeah. Well, I think we're definitely out of time here. We've gone a bit over. So I just want to thank you both, Ken and Andy, for being here. Andy, for you, reaching out to me, and that's really how this came about. So thank you to those of you who joined us in the chat today. I hope that, please go join Clan of Brothers. I think it's really great that you guys have put that together, and it sounds like such a good place to start getting support. If you are listening to this and you have suggestions for me and the work that I'm doing with Chasing Creation of how I can, if you are a guy dealing with this, how I can create more space for you or help you feel more included in the work that I'm doing, let me know. But yeah, Andy and Ken, thank you guys. This has been great.
Thank you, Katie. Oh, I forgot to mention, everybody was mentioning where they were from. And I'm in the United States, New Jersey. So I never mentioned.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you. All right. Well, yeah, this is great. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks again.
Bye. Thanks all. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.